What's up, kids? Welcome to another Friday Live at 3. Gonna spend a little time answering a few questions that got sent in during the last week and whatever you may want to send me while we're doing the live. Let's see. Announcements. What do we have going on this weekend? Not a lot, but I believe that our sponsored rider, Scott Champion, is going to be in Kemp, Texas for the Loretta Lynn's qualifier with MX Underground. Now, Nathan won't be there, but you can stop by and see Scott, maybe get an autograph if he's in a good mood. He always is. Mike from the PZ team, and then Nathan's dad, Rick, and his sister Chloe, they're all going to be working the Partzilla booth. So if you're anywhere nearby, stop by and check them out. So we'll get some free swag. Why not? Believe me, if I was anywhere, if I was in the same state, I'd swing over there. Loretta Lynn's has been a staple for decades. So go check them out. Okay, anything else? No giveaways going on right now? Don't we have a helmet giveaway going on right now, Tracy? Or is that not live yet? The multimedia team is so busy. It's kind of like this buzzing noise in the background, and I don't completely keep up with what's going on except for when they spoon feed me for one of these things. Tracy and I have had a pretty tough week here. What started out as just me doing a solo on our semi-retired little 2009 Mule 4010 Trans, just going to replace the steering rack on it because it has over 2,500 hours. And that probably equates to, I don't know, 20-something thousand miles at least. It's saying if you're going to average 10 miles per hour, every single thing on that left side of the machine has been an unmitigated just bear to deal with. If there was a bolt that had to be removed, it was frozen and had to be cut. The threads that it didn't want to let go, well, we had to tack weld on another bolt to extract it. I mean, it was just... It should be one hell of a video when I'm through with it. I almost feel sorry for Tracy. There's more B-roll than there is A-roll of me just fighting with this machine, especially over at the vise and the press. So even if you don't own a mule, it's going to be entertaining to watch these gears try to turn and figure out what the hell I'm going to do next to get out of the mess that I was in. So be on the lookout for that one in the next few weeks. All right, as far as questions for today, let's see what Hank has arranged for us. All right, Leonard Commodore 6775. My 08 GSXR 1000R sat 7 or 8 years. I know all about that. Tracy and I've been dealing with our ZX14, which sat for 6. After an accident, and my interest was lost. Okay, I can understand that. Now I want to get back to riding and went to start the bike. I noticed I needed a new throttle cable. However, my bike won't start. It turns over, just no fire. So we changed the tank. Okay, still nothing. And thought about the injectors. Maybe you needed cleaning, possibly. But keep in mind, you've got 8 of them in there. That didn't work, and we changed the battery with no luck. Should we check the stator next? No. A couple of things you want to look at, because I'm really leaning toward this being a fuel issue because she has sat for so long. You did mention that it had been in a wreck. So do check your tip over sensor, because sometimes in an impact, they'll get dislodged and the machine will think that it's sitting on its side when it's really not. So check that out. Just unplug it, plug it back in, make sure it's positioned correctly. I kind of doubt that's going to be it, but let's eliminate the simpler things first. After that, is your fuel pump actually priming? That's going to be the big thing. Nothing associated with the wreck, but that is associated with just the time that it is spent, idle and letting that fuel break down. I wouldn't even try to start it with whatever is remaining of the fuel that's in there. You'll need to go through and extract as much as you can out of that. I mean, I went through the same process with the ZX14 that I'm staring at in front of me. And I'm not sure if we have that video live, but if we do, go check it out. And that'll give you at least a roadmap on what to do with a machine that's been sitting for so long. Now, if your fuel pump is priming, though, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's building the correct amount of pressure, because I believe on the Gixxer it wants around 48 to 52 pounds, and if you really need to go ahead and get a inline pressure tester and see what it's actually developing. And don't let it fool you. Just because it primes up doesn't mean it can maintain that under a load condition. If what could cause it not to build up enough prime, well, one would be the fuel filter inside of the fuel pump assembly. That's what we ended up replacing on our ZX14. Another thing to look for with the machine that's been sitting for so long, if your pump is working correctly, you may not need to replace the whole thing if you've got a stopped up fuel pressure regulator, and that would definitely keep it from getting the right pressure out there, because let's face it, that's its job. So focus more on your fuel system and get a tester on there to see if it's given the pressure that it needs to flow through those injectors. And definitely clean, well, you've already replaced your tank, but clean out as much of the fuel system as you can. And you may want to consider pulling the injectors and just using a little Motion Pro cleaner to at least spray through them and see if they've got a decent pattern still. And I'm sure we've got a video that shows you how to use that little device. It's one of my go-to tools when I'm trying to resuscitate an older machine, like that mule that's sitting over on the lift right now. All right, next we had Bobby 1965 IFY. Hi, John. I have a 2004 Polaris Sportsman 700, just trying to figure out why it's locking in four-wheel drive. It doesn't want to come out of four-wheel drive. If you can help, I would appreciate it. All right, that one, it uses what they call a Hilliard clutch, and you're activating it. It's pulling it in to a cage. Now, over time, those cages, they can break and it'll get locked in that position. Now, hopefully yours is just a wiring problem. Those switches are known to be a little bit catchy at best. What you need to do is just reach up there to the differential housing itself and unplug it. And if it drops out at that point, well, that tells you you've got a wiring issue, because it has to have that 12 volts to hold it into that locked position, memory serves. Now, if you unplug it and it still doesn't want to drop out, that means it's going to be something mechanical inside the cage itself, more than likely. But start off by just unplugging it and see what it does. Julio Mateus, scroll down, there we go. I have a 2005 TRX 250EX. I'm getting good fuel flow. It has spark and compression. It cranks, but it won't start. So I cleaned the carburetor, put a whole new cylinder and piston, and it still won't turn over. Okay, well, you said it was... I'm going to go under the assumption that it's turning over and it's just not firing. All right, an 05. You've cleaned the carburetor. You've already replaced the cylinder head and piston, so I'm not going to ask you about timing or anything like that jumping. It has good compression. Are you sure about the timing as far as when the spark's hitting there? because what I'm leaning toward is the pickup coil, which is associated with the stator. So I wonder if she's not getting that spark when it's supposed to, because on a 2005, that harness is getting a little old. Those windings are getting old, and that pickup coil is in that same harness. And I've seen them time after time. The actual harness is starting to break down, and it interferes with that pickup coil, sending a strong signal to send the spark at the right time. So I would lay odds that that's probably what's going on with you, because you've replaced just about everything else. So if you're if you know that it's getting fuel and it's got good compression and your valves aren't too tight, especially the intake, because that's what I would have suggested, but you told me you've already replaced cylinder head and piston. So that leaves pretty much the ignition trigger. So I would look at that next, and that's going to be that pickup coil. All right, Rodrigue 350Z. Hello there. I have a question. Well, good. my CBR 600 RR 2008 has a temperature issue, goes up and down like crazy. I replaced the radiator, the coolant, and temperature sensor, but still the same. A little help, please. Well, looks like you replaced 90% of it. The only two pieces left really are the water pump itself, which if it's moving around that much, chances are it's fine. But you didn't mention anything about your thermostat. And thermostats usually get locked one direction or the other, but I have seen them just stick momentarily and then finally break loose. And that may be what's happening with yours. The other scenario that could cause it to fluctuate that much is maybe having a large air bubble in the system itself, the circulating around. That would make it bounce back and forth like that. I kind of doubt that, but just make sure that you went through the bleeding procedure correctly to get all the air out of the system. But definitely look at the or just go ahead and replace the thermostat and just check that off of your plate. And no, I don't want to restart my laptop. All right, Kay is the next person asking a question. It's unusual. He's not a man in black, is he? I did an oil change on my 07 400EX. Oh boy. And when I was reinstalling the oil filter cover, the long bolt would not tighten up and then it snapped. I was using a 3/8 torque wrench set to 7 foot-pounds since I just bought the bike and wanted to be certain. Any ideas what I should do? Why the bolt kept spinning? Why did the bolt keep spinning and then snapped? Thanks. Love the videos. 7 foot-pounds, that's not a lot. I mean, I think the actual setting is like 6.7, and I set mine to 7 all the time because that's just an M6 by 1.25 thread, if memory serves. Boy, out of all the 3 that you had to snap, that one's going to be difficult to do. It is way down inside of the case, the threads are. So that's going to be a bit of work. As to why it happened, I'm really suspect of the torque wrench you were using, because I mean 7 foot-pounds, I mean that's like using 2 fingers at best, or just one. That's going to be about all you can push is set in between 7 and 10 pounds with just your finger. There's no other reason except for that torque wrench being faulty. I just find it hard to believe. If I'd love to know the manufacturer, or if you want to send it to me, I'd see if it's calibrated or not. So you may want to send it, if you want to send me an email to the Ask Partzilla email address, I'll see if I can take a look at it. Who knows? I'll buy you one that I know works. How's that? You ship me yours, and I'll send you one that I know will work. Sound like a deal? All right, last for ones getting sent in this week. By the way, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's going to be difficult to straighten out. Jason Nix, should I add a fuel tuner to my 2015 Yamaha Grizzly 700? Unless you've changed something that's going to affect the your air fuel ratio, then no. I mean, I wouldn't. Now, if you've changed out your exhaust or you've changed up your intake with a different type of air filter, or maybe running your the filter without a lid on it, well, then yes, you need to compensate for that by either sending in more or less fuel to get the right ratio. But on a Grizzly, you're going to get that much better performance by putting a tuner on it with a stock scenario? I would think probably not. Manufacturers, they kind of head for a real safe zone because they don't know where the machine's going to end up, and they typically lean toward the rich condition just to be safe. Leaning it up a little bit, yeah, it's going to make it run a little bit hotter, maybe a little bit more power, but I don't think I'd want to go there. So my short answer is, if it's a stock setup, then no, you don't need to add a fuel tuner to it. All right, does that catch me up from the last week? I guess so. All right, let's see what we have for this week. Oh, it just looks like 3 so far anyway. Kyle Reese asks, "Hey John, thank you for your live Q&A." Well, you're welcome. Not a problem. I've said it many times. I like winding up my week, especially after that thing kicked my butt all week with a sit down and just a Q&A. It's kind of fun for me. On an 05 YZF-R6, I've noticed an oil smell in the exhaust and went to test compression, and there's oil in the intake and the air cutoff valve hoses from the cylinder head valves to the air box. Is this an issue in the making? I'm considering valves and piston rings. All right. The compression test gives you kind of a worst case scenario. Hey, but my engine's completely screwed, or it's could be viable. What I would suggest that you do is do a leak down test, and that just requires a different tool. Matter of fact, we had the same or similar conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we actually, I think we sent out mine. This, and of course, I've replaced it now. This guy, that is going to tell you what's going on inside your engine. So it'll tell you, well, if your rings are shot out, you're going to be able to hear it. And if it's your valves, you're going to be able to hear that through your intake, or the on the exhaust side, one of the two. So that's going to help kind of focus in on what the health of your engine and where it may be losing some of its zip. Now, as far as the oil in the intake manifold, that almost makes me wonder one of two things. Is there too much oil in the machine? And if it's spitting it back up into the intake in your air box, and when you're saying the intake, I'm thinking that you're telling me that's the air box itself. It does that when, of course, you've got when you're building up too much pressure down in the crankcase, and you're getting too much blow by, and that would indicate that, yeah, I need to replace the rings on this thing, or get it re-ringed. Keep in mind that that's got coated cylinders, so you can't bore it. Well, if you do, you have to get it recoated, and that's kind of an expensive process. So another set of rings that would probably straighten up. But before I crack open that engine, you need one of these things. Tell you what, I haven't even used this one yet. Kyle, if you send us an email to the Ask Partzilla email address, give us your contact information, I'll send this one to you. If you promise to use it and then report back on what you found. That sound like a deal? So Hank, if you would, drop that Ask Partzilla email address in the chat, or Nathan, if you would, so Kyle can get in touch with us. All right? Johnny Stoltz asks, "Hey, John, how are you?" I am good, other than that machine over there driving me crazy, which is a short trip. What's your opinion on the Honda CRF 300 Rally? Looking to purchase one in the future. Riding pretty much 50-50 highway and dirt roads, not really hardcore off-road. Johnny, I've never ridden that model, but I've got a friend down in Florida that he's into those sport adventure dual purpose bikes, and he had a chance to ride the 300, and he was impressed with it. He's used to a lot more power, but he said the 300 was fun. So I'm going to go with Cal's recommendation on that. As long as you're not pushing too far or too hard, I think that would be a fun choice to blast around on. In sport car circles, everybody gets worried about having the car with the most power. Mine's what they call a momentum car. And my favorite saying is, I'd rather drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. And I think that can be said for motorcycles, ATVs, side by sides, or whatever. Now they're fun no matter what. You don't need 1,000 horsepower to have fun, although that does have its advantages sometimes. Bob Mead, I have a question about the 2001 Honda Goldwing brakes. When I pump the rear brakes, the left front caliper locks up. If I crack the top hose, it comes free. I've replaced the master cylinder and the front brakes and rebuilt the front calipers. Wow. Well, daggum, Bob. You've gone through just about all of it. Of course, with the Goldwing, the brakes, the front and the rear, they're connected together through a series of pipes that basically go everywhere. What you're describing is typically one of two things. The calipers either just getting hung up and it doesn't want to release back, or it's the master cylinder not wanting to retract. But you're telling me it's just that front left and the front left only that's doing that. I know you said you rebuilt the front calipers, but by process of elimination, I think it may be time to replace that one. Now, rebuilding them and putting in new seals, if you've got any type of corrosion or buildup on the cylinder walls or the piston itself, well, you may not be able to feel or see that. And if you try to clean that out with one of those honing tools, sometimes that'll work, sometimes that won't. I'm not doubting your rebuilding capabilities. I'm just saying that it may not have gotten rebuilt fully to where it's functioning smoothly. So either A, go back in, use one of those tools to clean out the bores and the pistons themselves, and then give it one more shot, because you've done everything else you're supposed to do, and it's just that one that's locking up. So I think whatever problem is, it's still there that you tried to correct with a rebuild. It didn't quite get it done yet. All right, Harry Steed asks, I have a 2006 Yamaha Raptor 700 with a 727 stroker kit. Runs great, but seems to have a lot of oil residue in the exhaust pipes. Recently, it doesn't smoke at all. What could be causing this? Well, what you may be thinking is oil residue is possibly just it running just a bit too rich, in my opinion. Because if oil was going through there, if it was getting past the rings and going out through the exhaust, I think you'd be getting a fair amount of smoke. So my bet at this point would be that it probably is running a bit too rich. Did I say lean? I meant to say rich. So I'd be curious what type of programming you're running on it, or if you had the ECU flashed to deal with all the changes that you've made on it. But yeah, I would check your air fuel and see where it's at. Nick Dolznick asks, hey John, do you know if you have a tuner available for a 2017 RMX 450Z? I've been able to enrich the fuel by adjusting the GPS sensor, but sometimes it's hard to start when cold. Nick, off the top of my head, no, I don't, but I'm not afraid to do a little research and see if we can find one. Tell you what, I'll do that during the week, and then I'll report back at the beginning of next week's live. So Hank, if you would make a note of Nick's question and then tap me on the shoulder at least by Wednesday to make sure I'd go and see if I can come up with an answer for him. All right, kids. Hank, is that everybody? I see you typing on my screen. Yep. Hank is telling me we are done. All right, kids. Good questions today. Kyle, hopefully you'll send me that email, and I'll have Charlotte ship this out to you. Well, like I said, bunch of good questions. Enjoyed this little chat we had. Everybody have a great weekend, a great week, and we will do this again this coming up Friday at 3. Y'all take care.